G'day guys, and just a quick horses to follow segment. Haven't done one for a while. Unfortunately, nothing too exciting over the last few weeks. It's pretty tough time of year with these winter tracks and the winter horses. It's not too far away from the spring horses starting to resume, so hopefully we'll kick back into a bit more excitement when it comes to those meetings. But we'll rip through what we have got. Heading back to Goulburn on the 5th of June, there was an interesting first race here of a 1,000-metre maiden where there was the big go on a Danny Williams first starter by the name of Acquittal. It actually trialled really well in an open trial leading into this, and then there was an interview before the race with Danny Williams where he said that the horse had only sort of been in work for, I think it was 4 or 6 weeks. He would have liked 2 or more weeks with it. It also paraded really aggressively and did a lot wrong. It sort of got a bit lost on the way around to the gates and fell apart a bit. It misses the kick here and does everything wrong and still only gets beaten a nostril. So it's a horse with good talent. He's on the inside here. He kind of misses it a bit. Gabby Engelbrett first starter leads in. It was hard to run on this day. Not that third defence was a bad position either, but you can see the horse pretty keen in the run. Gets the split it needs at the right time to come after the leader, who's had a soft time of it in front. They still run good time and obviously gap the rest of the runners here. I'm not saying that Quiddle definitely didn't have its chance here, but there's obviously a lot of upside to this horse, and I don't know whether he'll put him away or what he'll do, but he's definitely got ability and he's definitely not going, just to be a maiden for too long. So just keep an eye out for him. It's not an exciting horse to follow that's going to be odds or anything, but it's just a horse to keep an eye on and see what he's up to. Similar thing in race 4 here. It's just this horse at Common Purpose that's ran into some good horses so far, and it's again finds a race where it's led here and run into what looks a city class horse in Danzy. They've put 6.5 on the rest of them. They've run time. It's just a matter of time till this horse breaks its maiden. It's not going to be any price, that's for sure. But it's definitely not a horse to be betting against, I wouldn't say. And I just thought they might have gone a bit slow here, especially if I'd have been on this leader and seen my main danger was 3 wide. I would have been doing a lot more than these horses are doing here. I would have been doing a lot more on the leader if it was me, especially when the rail looked good as well. There was no reason not to kick up and put the rest to the sword, really. I really think that if he had have taken off a bit earlier, he might have taken a bit of the sting out of this horse Danzy, because back on the line late, there's nothing between them and it's heads up, heads down. It looked like it might have even won there, Common Purpose, but it's got beaten. So it's not going to be a maiden long. These gaps behind are great. Opened up off an even tempo, so it's very difficult to be against either runner and not much between them. Obviously, Danzy's got to go up in grade now, which makes it a bit tougher, but it does look up to city grade probably off that, and so does Common Purpose eventually, but has to break that maiden status soon. Has been expensive so far. Heading to Cessnock on the next day. Race 3, not a great race on paper. Bit of a slow tempo, so not too bad, but not a race I generally want to find a horse in. But I just thought 11.50 first up. Horse here called Happy Go Plucky for Alan Denham. Not suited by Cessnock really as a type of horse unless it got out in trip and could sort of move forward a bit. He's back in here. Midfield gets a bit tightened up there and dragged back a touch. See, he's never really comfortable around this circuit. Back third last year. Eventually does get quite a nice run through them. It takes a while to get balanced up and then hits the line quite nicely late. Again, it's not really about the race here, it's about the horse. Just look at the way he really flattens out late down that straight, which is not easy to do downhill and make ground. So he's come back really well. I'll be keeping an eye out for him at the provincials or country. Around the same sort of thing, 1200 is probably ideal, and we'll get out to 1400 without issue. He looks to have come back in good fettle. race. Gundagai, sorry, no, where do we go now? Canterbury on the 7th. Again, not much to work with here that wasn't too obvious. Obviously, I would have probably thrown Collateral in here, but he's already gone out and won again since first race of the day for the 2-year-olds. And ran good time here off a slow tempo. Fence was very good this day. And I want to find the 4th horse here in Intuition, who'd debuted over 1350. Then this was his first up run, this time over 1100. So I'm thinking this was more of a barrier trial for this horse. Ends up 3 back the fence here. Gets to the outside. Turning. Out sprinted by those on the fence. Sort of gets to the middle part here, which was definitely the hardest place to run on for the day. Envy of All holds the fence. This is Galway, who's come out and won again in town since. And I just thought this horse took a little bit of time to wind up, but he was really getting through his gears on the line in the worst part of the track. And he'll find a race 1200 or further very soon. So he's up outside the leaders, a couple hundred metres after the race. So he's one that wants probably a little bit more ground, but he does look an interesting horse going forward. I think that was a pretty strong race, slow tempo bias against, and he's one that could go around at value odds in the near future. Gundagai on the 8th. Bit of an obvious one here, but again, the setup's the interesting part for mine. You've got a horse who's won the race in Balala. His form before this was all over 900, 1,000, eventually got to 1,200 at his 3rd run, then had a short break back to 11. This is the first time he resumed off a 209-day break, so he got a little bit tired even that day over 12. After a 3-run preparation, he's shown up here first up off a good spell, over 6 months, and over a trip that was his maximum trip previous, on a rain-affected surface too. I think it was published as a 5. It was closer to a 7 according to our figures, and it's just interesting to see him here. He's found a fast race with a gone out hard. He's entitled to get tired late, and he did a bit, but his win was arrogant, and he's likely to go on to better things. He's ridden cold early, back and wide, near enough to last early. This is him back here. When he's moved into the race, they're actually going quite fast, and then he's continued that run around them wide and had to sustain quite a long run. He's got to the front fairly well, showing pretty good acceleration. And then he's just knocked up for mine. He would have put them away if he had another run under his belt. I think he's got quite tired there, so I think there's plenty of upside to him. He's still run time, 1,200 metres first up. It's only a Gundagai benchmark 55, but I think he's one that could go on to much better racing than that. I think he's a nice enough progressive horse. 10th of the 6th at Randwick. Won't spend too much time on. Another obvious winner in Champagne Cuddles. Ran really quick time. First up on a heavy track. Great sign. Heard they're going to give her a bit of time and come back with her. Really like the sound of that. I think she's really above average and can go on to definitely black type racing. And no real need to even look at the replay here. It's only a 4-horse race. Beat Lipizan comfortably with good gap back to the rest, but it was just completely dominant. And it's more about overcoming a tough setup and a tough track and winning, comprehensively against those odds. Race 3, another race where they've run exceptionally fast time for a 1,000 metre class 3. May not be a huge number of these sort of races that have been run under these conditions, but Clippers run really well. The horse I'm actually wanting to highlight is this horse, Nick Tock, first up from a good spell here. Was undefeated prior to this in some decent country grade, and now goes to town against more seasoned horses for the first time. Gets up outside the leader in the toughest spot, does over race a touch fresh, had trialled well prior to this. Clipper, who's had the run over further, coming back in distance, and just was a bit too tough for her on the day. The leader had it was a completely hard fit, had quite a bit of racing, and had raced well. So it's good. This good margin behind Nick Toku doesn't give up. Definitely can follow the winner in something similar, no doubt about that. Absolutely dominant over them, but I do think Nick Tok can improve significantly fitness-wise and can be followed confidently. I think it's a nice enough horse. Just probably want 21 days between runs at least for that to get out of its system and perform at its best again. Just keeping that in mind. Race 5's more of an honourable mention here. The time's not that great, but they have gone out incredibly slow and sprinted home, so it's not. It would have been hard for them to run fast time over 2,000 metres. You've got a 3-year-old filly here who's having its third start in a race, jumping 600 metres in distance onto a heavy surface. A maiden racing in a benchmark 72, and not a lot goes right for it. We'll see it back in the field here and misses the start. Ends up hunting through and over racing and doing all sorts of things. Never has cover in the event, which is not ideal, even though it wasn't too bad to sit a little bit wide on this day. A horse jumping in distance on a wet surface probably wants more favours if possible. Looks under pressure until she swaps leg here and puts away some hard and tough fit horses that have had multiple preparations, winners. And look what she does, changing stride, looking green. I've not seen a win like it as long as I can remember. The time, people will debate wasn't great, and the race may not have been the best quality of possible, but it's just incredible watching that last 150, 200 metres, what she does to these horses here. So you've got 1, 2, say that horse is 2 behind it. That's another length, say. So you've got another, say, even if you bunch these horses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 horses within 4 lengths of each other at the 250. So 4 lengths between them at the 250. Off a slow tempo, which is even harder to do. Natoya's opened that up too, and look what her through the line. Like, it's incredible what she's done. She's opened that to 16, so she's put 12 on all those horses effortlessly on a heavy surface at a third start in a race, jumping in distance. So it's an incredible win, really. I'm not sure where she ends up or what she's going to do. I know she's going to the Sunshine Coast Saturday week for a mile race. Hopefully that'll be a drier surface there, just to see what she can do, because that's pretty much what everyone wants to see. Heading to the last, and another race that wasn't a great quality, and it's more about the setup. I just think this horse cleared the beach. Second up, 1200. It was so heavy in condition first up when it won that 1100 metre race. So that does two things for mine. Makes it vulnerable second up, because that may have taken plenty out of it when it just might not have been ready. It might have put a lot into that first up run, and now has to go 1200 on a heavy track, which is a lot more difficult task. That horse set up outside it. They over-raced a little bit, and they did go solid enough tempo. Fought on really well again. Didn't want to give in. Loved the look of that. I know that conditions were probably suitable, if anything, but still think that he's got plenty of upside. Another 1200 metre race on a better surface, even back to Rose Hill, would be ideal for this horse, and I think it's ready to win again next time out. Kembla Grange, a couple of obvious ones. This Brook Magic comes out and wins clearly. Not really even worth looking at. Wins by 5.8, but runs exceptionally quick time. They go out hard. Sits up on the pace. Outside the leader, over races a bit of everything in anything, and then puts a big margin on them. Another horse that pricks its ears and runs through the line pretty effortlessly. It's a city grade horse. I know that Kembla Maidens are not the greatest pointer always, but this horse looks an exception to the rule. Another one you might want 21 days just to be confident again, coming off a heavy track run first up. This winner could have been pretty impressive for mine, and another race that you don't really want to find horses in half a length or a length between the first 6 across the line. I just want to point out the way this horse has won. It was first up off a decent break, trained stables, heavy track, and misses the kick here, races a bit greenly, gets forced back to the tail, over races basically throughout, and then I think the jockey sort of gets itchy feet here. Look at the horse just over racing, wanting to do everything quicker. And when the jockey sees a bit of daylight here, I think he makes the mistake of pushing the button way too early on it. You see he's already into the horse here, and the horse has basically got a short dash, and first up was always going to peak, so I would have been trying to hold her together a bit longer. All I'm saying is that, you know, she'd put a margin on him pretty quickly there from a bad position after over racing. She's knocked up, and she still holds them up, so plenty of upside in this horse. I definitely want 3 weeks between runs to see the best of her, and very interested to see where she goes. I think she's definitely city class, and you may get away with a bit of a price next time out, ever 1100, 1200 absolute maximum, 3 weeks between runs, just because they might underplay that win. I think everything's gone wrong and she still won, and her fitness base will definitely improve, so she's an interesting runner. Last, lucky last, another race that's just an even, it's a fastish tempo, even sort of time, but a horse that I think's got a heap of improvement in it, and has only had 2 starts in a race, is this horse Dream Builder. Its first start in a race, it got forced back to last, checked off heels. It was a fast enough race, and not a lot of luck. Boston Light's come out and run well since. This horse obviously went to town, jumping from 12 to 14 to a heavy at second start in a race, which is not easy to do. I'm sure they wanted to race probably a bit handier if possible, considering the pattern on the day here, which was to race handy. And even though it's got a bit of pace in its favour, it does come out slow a bit here, and gets back to last. Gets over racing a touch, inside runners here. This is the horse, sorry, back here if I've not pointed it out, with the red cap. Just doesn't get any sort of clear running here to get any momentum up. The horses outside it drop off, and it's, you see here, just struggling to find room. It does get outside these runners here and to the outside in pretty decent ride, but it's just so hard to run on down this position this day. The winner's skipped away to Volley Street, chasing it's already had the city run under its belt, and I just thought the horse had to spend a lot of energy to get here, and for it to fight on as well as it did was a really good effort. I do think it's got a good win in it. And just picking something up there, the horse outside it was in a similar fashion, only second up from a spell, had a similar run in the race, had a 1400 metre run as opposed to a 12 to a 14. So it's probably an interesting horse in itself, Gravitate, and I may have just missed it, so interesting, you know, to always pick things up the first time, and I just hadn't looked it up to see what sort of form it had under its belt. But there's similar runs, and I think they've both done a good job here. Just know a little bit more about Dream Builder, and know that it's probably one that can improve sharply, probably at 1400 on a dry surface next time out, or drier surface, and probably another one that wants, you know, a good 2 week break at least between runs. So hopefully there's some horses there of interest. Nothing too exciting, as I've said. There's a lot of horses going to different targets, and hopefully a few of them win along the way. Thanks, guys.